Yo, what's good? It's your boy Mixtape Moth, and today I'm gonna hit y'all with a review of the new Horsemen album entitled The Last Ride. Let's get to it. Alright, so the Horsemen are a super group comprised of four MCs who each got their start in the 90s. Cannabis, Killer Priest, Raz, Cass, and Corrupt. The group name is in reference to the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This super group of spitters can basically be looked at as the original Slaughterhouse. In the late 90s and early 2000s, these rap technicians represented some of the best from east to west. The group formed in the early 2000s, and there was much anticipation for their debut album, especially in the underground scene. Now, in 2003, they unofficially released the Horseman Project, which was a collection of 9 unmixed and unmastered tracks that became massively bootleg. They would go on to appear on each other's solo projects for many reunion songs over the years, but in 2014 they actually released an EP entitled Historic. But 7 years later, the group would finally decide to release their debut album, which took a whopping 20 years to make. It contains 13 tracks and lasts a total of 56 minutes. Now, because this was created over the span of 2 decades, there is some old material and recycled verses mixed in with more recent recordings. But with that being said, let me go ahead and hit y'all with this track by track breakdown. The opener, Centro, finds each member briefly reintroducing themselves with just a few bars. This is set to an eerie soundscape with strings. The production sounds suited for a DJ Muggs compilation. It does give off strong apocalyptic and end of day vibes, so I think they succeed in setting the tone with this intro. Track 2, Centaurs, is essentially a remix to a Cannabis track from 2015. The uptempo boom bap production is a good backdrop for each MC to do some lyrical damage. Cannabis sets it off and he doesn't disappoint. He spits shoulder to shoulder, face to face, where Saruman's soldiers, the heat from the second sun smolders. At 200 degrees, I dropped to my knees. Priest told me to breathe, the time signature freeze. Killer Priest has a dope verse, but what I liked the most was the back and forth between Corrupt and Razcast. I feel these two sounded the best out of everyone. Overall, I feel it's a solid track, even though Cannabis's voice sounded extra hoarse on the hook. Track 3, this shit right here, is at least 10 years old, but it has a rugged and dusty instrumental and a cool Cat Williams sample on the hook. I actually like this raw production a lot, and I think it's a great song, even though it's so old. Razcast humorously asks, is these rap dudes crazy spitters? Do Catholic priests make good babysitters? No. All members had strong verses, but I probably enjoy Corrupt and Razcast's verses the most again. Right after is the posse cut Champion, which features Planet Asia and Chino XL. We are getting a very stripped back boom bap beat. The beat itself is not bad, although it's a bit generic, but the reggae soundboy hook doesn't work for some reason. It's a shame too, because with this much lyrical talent on deck, you would think they could have used a slightly better instrumental and hook. However, everyone came correct on the lyrical tip, which is no surprise. Razcast raps, I took my name from a descendant of Menelik. Razcast forced kings to get respect, and of course the queen's genuflect. But it is Chino XL who stole the show here with his rapid fire syllables. A line that stood out was, wild animals be like Chino, that's my spirit human. All in all, great spitting throughout, but questionable production. Thankfully, the beat on Morticians is a step up. We get some strings, eerie keyboards, and what sounds like a sample from something off of the Chronic 2001. I feel each member shined equally in terms of the bars. Corrupt sounded hungry with raps like, the abomination Caesar, young Ebenezer, I saturate bodies with shotties and meat cleavers. Killer Priest delivers some fast-paced biblical raps. It's nothing we haven't heard before from him, but it was easier to decipher than some of his more recent material. Then Cannabis closes out the track with some tactical bars. War College, false prophets get shut down with real rockets, drone operators in the field with optics. Right after is the modern sounding track 1 Second. Now everything about this song feels more current, from the wavy and poppy production to the COVID reference. This surprisingly features a verse from Huss Kingpin. Now I know he's got a connection with Corrupt and Planet Asia, but I gotta admit, I didn't expect him on a Four Horseman project. Either way, his style does fit this chill and wavy beat. Razcast makes it known that he's not cool with all the self-snitching going on. He raps, "Me and my guys do our dirt solo, so I ain't snitching on myself. You rockin' coke, stay in that kitchen by yourself." All in all, this was a dope song that just demonstrates how good Corrupt and Razcast still sound in 2021. Track 7 is Love in War. It's pretty much the lone conceptual song. It deals with relationships and romance. I can respect the theme here, but I didn't care for the stale "Love's a Battlefield" sample at all. I recall the rapper Zero sounding great over this same sample in the mid-2000s, but this one didn't work so well. This comes across like a track Slaughterhouse or Eminem would have made a few years back. The end result was not good. What comes next is Believer, a track that I would consider a highlight. The suspenseful beat, the sample, and the Rakim vocal excerpt on the hook were all a nice touch. I feel each MC ripped this, but the distorted layer added to Cannabis's vocals was awful. I just don't know why they would want to over accentuate his already extremely gravelly voice. Right after is False Prophets, a short interlude where Killah Priest crams a bunch of biblical imagery and conspiracy theories into one verse. There's not much to it, but I guess it's fine for aesthetic purposes. The subsequent track is Apocalypse Now. It's got a decent drum and piano groove, but a hook that I found to be a little odd. It's not like I disliked the refrain, but it appeared they were trying to go for a Dr. Dre Aftermath era hook. It sounded a little dated. Regardless, I feel all members murked this as there were enough quotables to go around. Track 11, Impossible, is another record that's at least 10 years old. The upbeat spy music combined with the pop sample isn't the greatest, but lyrically it's one of the sharpest on the project. Razcast cleverly raps, "I'm a Renaissance spitter, ruin rap careers and 140 characters like Twitter." But it is Cannabis who has one of his best verses on the project. Rapid fire, some lyrics like Big Pun spittin', like the time I sat there and watched him eat 8 chickens. I'm the sickest linguistically illicit lyrical misfit in the business, still ripping motherfuckers listen. The second to last song, Burger King, is one of my favorites in terms of the beat and vibe. We are getting a raw and funky instrumental with a splash of soul. There's a Slick Rick vocal excerpt on the chorus that I really like as well. Sonically, this does give off more of that West Coast flavor that you would expect from a Razcast album. But this record is all about serving MCs up Burger King style. There's a light-hearted and humorous element to the lyrics. It's definitely a cool vibe, and it was good to hear from Phil to Agony again. The album comes to a close with Last Ride. It has a Wild West style beat. The mysterious backdrop does fit well with this theme of the Four Horsemen on their last ride. At the end of the track, Killah Priest describes the 20-year process that it took to make the album, and he makes it very clear that this is a one and done. It's a debut and finale wrapped in one. But in terms of the lyrics and production, I feel this was a strong way to close things out. It's definitely a top 3 beat on the album. Overall, I give this project a rating of 3.5 mics. So if you were to rate this album solely on the lyrics alone, then I could see why the rating might be higher. But personally for me, I look at the whole package when reviewing albums. I care just as much about the production as I do the lyrics. Now, don't get it twisted. Lyrics are extremely important, but they gotta have a good beat to back them. Anyways, that's just my mindset when I review projects. With that being said, I feel this album had some average to not so good production that kept it from being as great as it could have been. Because if I had to rate the production alone, I would give it a 2.5 to a 3. Sonically, it's not the most cohesive, as some of the older tracks end up sticking out like sore thumbs. Still, all things considered, I think this project could have sounded a lot worse given the fact that they included old material. But clearly, the strength to the album was the lyrical content. I mean, that's a given when you have these 4 elite level MCs Foreman like Voltron. While I think for the most part each member sounded good, it was Raz, Kass, and Corrupt who I would label as the MVPs for the album. Their voices and flows sounded the crispiest out of all four, in my opinion. History has proven that supergroup projects tend to disappoint, but as a whole, I do like this album more than some of the Slaughterhouse ones. And I think most hardcore fans will be satisfied with this for the most part. I'm just happy that it got to see the light of the day after all this time. My favorite tracks include This Shit Right Here, 1 Second, Believer, Burger King, and Last Ride. Let me know what you thought about this album in the comment section below. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out, but be sure to hit that like button and please subscribe. As always, it's peace and blessings. Horsemen, Last Ride, 1.